my name is Linda Hebert Sekiguchi. Today is July 3, 2004. We are in Lone Pine, California, right in front of the Sierra Nevada. And we are at the home of Joni and George Hassel, Joni Hampton Hassel. We are here interviewing Charlotte Miles today. Charlotte has been in Department of Defense schools. In fact, she is retired from Department of Defense schools and was in the program for what, 30 years?
32.
32 years. So Charlotte, could you tell us a bit about your background before you got into DOD?
Okay, well, I was born in Reno, Nevada, and my parents moved when I was very young to Hollywood, California, and then thence to the San Fernando Valley. So I was raised as a Valley girl until I went away to college, La Sierra College down in Riverside, California. And from there I started teaching, and I had 1 year in Garden Grove and 2 years in Anaheim. And my dream, of course, since college was to get to Europe. And so one summer I did plan a trip with a girl to take the ship to Europe, but it didn't work out. Some little relative of hers had to have a serious operation, so she didn't want to go. And I didn't want to go by myself. Well, it happened that in my school in Anaheim, there was a gal who had heard about this overseas program, and she had signed up and interviewed the year before, but she only wanted Japan, and she hadn't been picked up. But the recruiter herself called this gal and said, please reapply, because prior to 1964, you had to apply to each service separately.
Oh, okay, so she was
And
applying
so, yeah, so she had only applied, I don't know, I guess to the Navy or
Navy.
something to go to Japan. But anyway, so the recruiter said, come and reapply, you'll get on all the services lists, and it'll be much better for you. And I said to this girl, Shirley, I'm going with you. And so I went on up, and I applied also, and the recruiter was very personable and said, oh, well, yes, you know, there might not be openings in the areas you prefer, like Europe, but like if you go to Newfoundland, they will, you know, probably fly you to Miami Beach, you know, for spring break and,
Wow.
and things like that. And I'm sure he took one look at me and wrote down, this kid will go anywhere. And so after that, that was in January of '64, and then in the spring, I got a little postcard maybe a couple months later that said, so far so good.
Wow.
Well, I filled out all the paperwork, of course, and all that, and my mom had to come down and try to remember every place we had ever lived.
Oh my goodness.
And she used to move every 3 months when I was little in Reno. So anyway, and then okay, so everything they said was going well, and then in April I got a telegram, and it said, have no position available for you in areas you prefer, but have Newfoundland, the Aoshs, and there was one more, Newfoundland, Okinawa. And so, of course, everyone that I talked to, I was very excited, you know, of course, and everyone I talked to, you know, the helicopter pilot from El Toro lived above me. Well, you don't want to go to the Rock, Okinawa,
Oh, gosh.
and you know, and the girls that were out from the Midwest said, you don't even know what cold is, so you know you don't want to go to Newfoundland. And then some other people said, well, the Aoshs, the mosquitoes there are just out of this world big, you know. So you might as well make up your own mind. So I decided on the Aoshs because they were the closest to Europe, only 800 miles, and I thought, well, you know, those pilots, you know, they probably could take us in for the weekend and
Sure.
so forth. So I said, I prefer the Aoshs, thank you. I sent my little telegram in, and another week I got another telegram back, and it said, welcome to Goose Bay, Labrador.
Oh.
My roommate brought it up to school and I said, Goose Bay, Labrador? That wasn't on the list. I bet it's where those reindeer are. I bet it's those reindeer. And so, anyway, you know, I finally found out that it was the east coast of Canada, and it was kind of a trick maybe because Labrador and Newfoundland combined make the 12th province of Canada called Newfoundland.
Oh.
So even though, you know, before I was thinking the island of Newfoundland, but anyway, but the telegram said, if you accept this assignment, you'll be given first priority next year. And so I said, doggone it, I'm going.
Good for you.
And I kept that telegram in my wallet all year. And the next year I did get Little Village, Germany, Ansbach. So that was the start of that.
So you started out in Goose Bay, Labrador, then you went to Ansbach, Germany.
And 2
do you
years.
remember the other places where you
Well,
lived?
yes.
I mean, it's you have a long career.
I have
in
a very
DOD,
long
so I know you've
list,
been
so
many places.
I can kind of go through them if you would like.
Sure, why don't you?
Okay, 2 years in, excuse me, Germany, and then I had a year in England, and, you know, I got to meet my English relatives that I'd never met before, and my dad came over, and
Wow.
it was nice for him to meet some uncles of his that he never met. And so after England, then I said, this is pretty good, but I heard about all those people who had come from Okinawa. They were always having these reunions in Frankfurt, and so off I went to Okinawa for a year. I said, it's kind of hot here, you know. So anyway, I decided to transfer, and I got Bermuda.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, well, I'll be on the beach there all year, but no, you're not on the beach from November to May. But they do have beautiful pink sand beaches. Yeah, it gets chilly out there. It's not in the Bahamas like people think. It's 700 miles straight out from the coast of North Carolina. But we bought our little Hondas, our little 50cc's Hondas, and zoomed all around and collected the pink sand. And we go down and, you know, enjoyed all the people from the big cruise ships that would come in, and then they'd have to bring the bands on the beach, you know, for all the passengers. We go down and join them.
What fun.
Yeah, so it was fun. And so, okay, after Bermuda, then I said, well, it's kind of quiet here, you know, I kind of miss the action in the Far East. So, you know, maybe I should transfer again. And I get this letter, you know, or there was some new policy that said, okay, you've had, you know, 3 inter-area transfers in the last 4 years, and so you are going to be stuck in the Atlantic area for, you know, 3 more years, and 2 at least in Bermuda, unless you accept an extreme hardship area, of which I'd already been to Goose Bay, so I didn't want to go back there. The other 2 were Iceland and Newfoundland, and I said, well, you know, I don't really want to get stuck in the Atlantic for 4 years and another year in Bermuda. And so anyway, okay, I made up my mind, I'm going to go, but if I'm going to be cold, I'll be cold with more money. So I decided to go to Iceland, which had a 15% differential, you know, as opposed to the 10% in Newfoundland. So off I went to Iceland, and so it was, you know, it was fun, but winter sets in, excuse me, the 15th of September. And so they had some great tours around the island, the island of fire and ice, but you know, we saw the aurora borealis, and the wind. Of course, the astronauts have to come up there to practice walking on the moon because, you know, it's all lava. And we did get to go skiing in the Arctic Circle and things like that. But I was glad when I did get my transfer to the Philippine Islands, so that was great. So that was 1971, and off I zoomed to Clark Air Base.
Right. So how long were you there?
Well, I was there actually 4 years, and then my mom had been talking about taking a freighter cruise for about 10 years, and the summer before, I guess like summer '73, I said, I'd really like to go with you. And she said, well, how can you? I said, well, they're giving these ed leaves a dime a dozen. So why don't I apply for an ed leave and I'll see how many credits. And she said, well, I can only be gone like 3 months from work anyway. So, you know, you can work on, you know, your master's or something second semester. So, so she kept sending me all the brochures, travel tips, freighter bulletin, reading up people's trips. And so anyway, so we decided on a med cruise. I don't know if they call them cruises being the freighter trip, but anyway, so 75, 76, I left and was on ed leave, and so it was fun. We got on the ship in Camden, New Jersey, and we had it was supposed to be a 50 to 60 day round tripper. Well, we had a 52 one-wayer.
Wow.
And we got off in, well, there were a lot of ports like Latakia, Syria, that we couldn't get in unless we were carrying arms or sugar or perishables like bananas. And so that's what the trip was long. But the longer the trip was, the cheaper it got because you don't have to pay any more. If so that worked out good too. You know, like less than $10 a day. So.
How many days did it end up?
Oh, well, we were 52 days on the
okay.
Yugoslavian freighter called the Ugolinia.
Wow.
And we were like 50 passengers and 50 crew.
Wow.
Well, 50 passengers and 50 crew. Anyway, it worked out very well. We were one-way passengers. We got off when it went into home port in Rijeka, Yugoslavia. And so then we made our way by train and bus to Spain, and then we bought a 10-day tour of southern Spain.
Wow.
And we bought it in Madrid, and so no, what am I saying? We bought it in Italy, and so we paid lira for it. We have no idea how much we actually paid for it. So anyway, we had a nice 10-day tour of southern Spain, and then I worked on my master's second semester, and then off I went back too. They said those will save your position in the med, but that's it. And so where did they send me? And right back to Clark.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, and then I said, well, okay, I'll have another year back at Clark, a year or two. Well, then of course the first fall, you know, by the time December comes, transfer time comes around, and they said, okay, now you have to sign up for 2 years. 2 years? I said, this is a 1-year area. No, it's become a 2-year area now. So anyway, I wasn't ready to leave the next year, so they got me for an extra year. So I had 3 years back at Clark, but we always had a good time at Clark, traveling around and spacing into, you know, Bangkok and Japan and so forth. So that was good. So I had 7 years all told at Clark, and then
So that was your longest assignment then?
it was.
Yeah.
It really was my longest assignment, and then I decided to maybe, you know, get back to Europe, but what I got was the Azores, and that was fun. You know, the great gas station in the Atlantic, but you know, I always had fun wherever I went. And after the Azores, then I got a very nice assignment to Gaeta, Italy. And it's right on the coast there, and it's a little Italian resort about an hour north of Naples. And it was beautiful. I had a little apartment in a villa that overlooked the Med, and I was very popular because everybody that wanted to go to the little beaches that were located right below where I lived would have to park, you know, just general people would have to park way out on the Rome Road and walk down. But if they could park in my parking lot, then we could just walk down the hill from where I lived. So that was fun. Yeah, so I really had a good chance to see Italy. And so I was 4 years there, and then I got a nice assignment to the Garden of the Middle East, Interlake, Turkey. I said, oh, that sounds... But, you know, you meet people who've had good times at these places, good assignments, and so then the other people, you know, that say, oh, Turkey, what do you want to go there for, you know?
Right.
But Margaret McDowell said, you are going to have a good time, and she, you know, she told me all about it, showed me her pictures, and so I did have a good time.
Great.
And I've been to see Mount Ararat twice in the eastern part of Turkey, and so 4 years there.
Wow.
And then I had a chance to go to northern Spain, to Zaragoza, and that was good. And the base closed, and last year I got down to 8 kids.
Oh, wow.
And so we took the whole school down to Expo in
Seville?
Sevilla way,
Oh,
yeah. So we
yeah.
just on the bus all day, all night down there, and then touring, you know, all day, and then the bus all day back. But we did it. And I had another chance to go by myself, so that was great. So 4 years in Zaragoza, Spain.
Wow.
And then of course the base closed, and it was going to be potluck. What you going to get next? And so I had always heard about this place, but anyway, they offered me, you know, take it or leave it, La Maddalena, Italy,
Oh.
small island in the Med, straight out from Rome, 2 miles by 4 miles around.
That was the island
That was
size.
the island. So everything, it's really a mile off the northern coast of Sardinia. So
Right.
your whole life, more or less, revolves around the ferry schedule that you just kind of tattoo on your arm and say, okay. But you have it pretty much memorized, you know, you better be on that ferry Sunday night by 11 o'clock, or that's it until 4:30 the next morning.
So you were going across to Sardinia, or?
Yeah,
over to the
Sardinia,
mainland?
or then cut over and then take, if you want to go to Corsica. Now Sardinia and Corsica are only 7 miles apart. So, you know, that was fun. That was kind of an international destination for some, you know, yachts and so forth. And well, as well as Sardinia, you know, the Aga Khan's Emerald Coast along the northern part of Sardinia is popular too. But Napoleon, you know, was born up there in old Corsica, and so it was fun. So for something different, we could get to Sardinia and then drive 45 minutes, then take the ferry from that part of Sardinia to Corsica. And then we'll just take our cars, you know, on the ferry, so.
Oh, so you did have a car on the island?
Oh, yeah.
On Magdalena, yeah.
Yeah, surely, yeah. So then, but every year was kind of like, you know, reinventing the wheel again. It was hard to get the specialists and the support people out, you know, once every 3 months from Naples to come out and help us with our, you know, special needs kids and families and so forth. So I said, really, and then I was kind of pokey with my master's plus 30, and so it turned out that I really needed 1 more year on the master's plus 30 pay lane, so they'll figure my retirement, my 3 highest paid years, you know.
Sure.
So I needed 1 more year, and I really couldn't bear to go back to La Maddalena, so I looked at every place that, you know, 1 year area that I thought I could stand for my last year, and I got Okinawa again.
For Pete's sake.
Yep, and so after, you know, 25 years or so that I was back again, but I was at a different base. I'd been at Naha the first time, and I got Kadena the second time, Bob Hope Elementary.
Wow.
And it was actually fun because a lot of people have been, you know, displaced with Mount Pinatubo in '91 from the Philippines were replaced around Okinawa. So that was kind of neat. And then a friend and I went back at Easter break to see the damage and what Clark Air Base looked like now. From '91, you know, being Mount Pinatubo to this is '97 now in the spring. And so, you know, staying in Chambers Hall, which had now become the Holiday Inn, was kind
Chambers
of
Hall had been your residence?
my first year or two. I don't even remember until I moved up to the L.
That was the BOQ.
Yeah, so here we were staying in, you know, like, whose room are we in the annex? You know, whose room? Was it Linda Sakaguchi's room, or Jody Hampton's room, or whose room was it? So it was kind of deja vu-ish. But
Now, you had left the Philippines in
in '79,
'79,
Yeah.
so this was
this was
20
'97. Yeah,
almost 20 years
Yeah.
later, 18.
yeah. So the hospital was completely empty. Old Grissom School. All that was left was a ornamental fence, and
Wow.
I could see the old BOQs we lived in up at the hill had all been reconditioned for AC and so
Wow.
forth, but they had been looted of all appliances, of course, and
Aw.
stuff. We could see that they must have been, quite nice. And so that was kind of that, and I said, well, it's been fun, but I need to see America now. So I retired in June of '97 and made my way leisurely through Seoul, Korea, and Hawaii, and hence home.
And now you're settled in.
In Beaverton, Oregon,
Uh-huh.
and took me a while to decide where I wanted to go. Most people
Mhm.
kind of, check it out beforehand, but, oh no, I'm always too busy doing something else in the summer than to look for a retirement home, so it took me a while, but my mom took me in for a year, and we cruised around different places, like Arizona and Nevada and Florida,
Sure.
and places like that, but
Mhm.
nothing really called me back until I'd gone to visit my niece up in Portland, and she and her husband had just had been transferred there, and so I said, oops, not half bad here,
Great.
big trees, no sales tax, you're not allowed to pump your own gas, and but anyway, so then I did decide though I would come back and try it in the winter before I bought anything.
Sure.
So that's what I did. I rented a little studio apartment
Mhm.
uptown in Portland, and
Mhm.
for a few months in the winter,
Mhm.
until I got a letter from Uncle Sam saying, you have until August 15th to get your, storages out
Oh,
of
yes,
government
all your
storage.
things in storage.
All your
Oh,
goodies, you
yes,
have till August
okay,
15th. So
yeah,
this was
okay. The
Easter,
motivator.
right? The Easter of '99 now, and so I said, well, I think my personality has not become too changed by a little rain, so let me get the real estate lady.
Mhm.
And so a month later, found a little condo out in Beaverton.
Mhm. Great.
So anyway,
Okay.
I've been having a lot of fun, having a chance to travel a little bit more and see America, and
Sure.
a few trips overseas, and then my friends can come by and see me.
Sure. Great.
So.
Well, now we've talked about all the wonderful places you've been, and I can't believe all those spots with DOD you've been. You must know everybody in DOD right now.
Oh, well, I have a lot of fun at the reunions.
For sure. Well, then what grades did you teach as you were going all these different places, or what
Okay.
positions did you have?
Okay,
Was it
well,
mainly
I started
one-
out at Goose Bay with 39 fourth graders,
Mhm.
and
Wow,
so
39.
39 fourth graders,
Wow.
yes, down to 8 third graders that I ended up with, that was my
Mhm.
smallest class, of course, when Zaragoza closed, so.
Mhm.
But most of the time I was teaching second, third, and fourth,
Mhm.
but I
Okay.
did have a fifth grade.
Mhm. And then, can you tell us about some of the, well, here's more about your travel experience, but what about the school itself? Did you do unique things with your children, like with the culture, the local culture, any of those sorts of things? What kind of things do you recall orienting the children to?
Well,
where
we
you
like
were
in Turkey,
living?
we visited a Turkish, classroom, and there's so many kids in the classrooms, though, that the children, if the parents can afford it, send them to the dersanis, which are after-school classes, because, they have notebooks, and the teacher has to write everything on the board, and the kids copied in their little notebooks,
Wow.
and they learn in that way. And so, our kids, felt pretty lucky having smaller classes. But
Now
then
the Dersanis are what?
they're after-school
That's great.
schools in Turkey.
They're private. So
Yes,
uh-huh,
yes.
uh-huh.
And but then, of course, the field trips were always fun, taking the kids to Turkey, then out to pick the cotton, and see
Wow.
how they process it and put it in the cotton gins and the big bales, how they bale it up and so forth. So, many of those host nation field trips were just wonderful.
Mhm.
In Spain, I always took them down for the Pilar Fest, which is the big cathedral, and the pillar, the Pilar,
Mhm.
that the Virgin, you know, is said to have appeared to St. James on. And so they have it in early October, and they have parades with national costumes, and it's just the Pilar Fest, and it takes place for about 8 days, and so I always like to take the kids down to see the old costumes and how the people revere, you know, the cathedral, and they place flowers all the way up the side of the cathedral. It's just
Wow.
really magnificent. Spain, I'm trying to remember, Germany, I know our principal took us all in his little Citroen, 8 of us, down to the Nuremberg Beer Fest. I remember
Oh,
that.
good.
Yeah.
I hope the students weren't included.
No, we were 8 of us in teachers in his little Citroen, and my friends always remind me that I was in the back seat, and I leaned forward, and of course, you know, the beer fest there started in September, and so school had not been on very long, and I leaned forward and said, "And what do principals do every day?" They never let me forget that. But you know, Henry and his wife were very good to their teachers there, and always partied with us and so forth. England, I remember the English teachers coming to they were little student teachers, I believe,
Mhm.
and they came to, I was teaching in a Quonset hut in Wethersfield, England. And
Oh, really? A Quonset
yeah,
hut?
a Quonset hut, yeah, we had a few Quonset huts. And the young teachers came in and said, "Where are the rest of your children?" Because they have also about 50 kids
Oh, my.
in their classes. But I believe they have someone to help them also.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think,
Okinawa, the Philippines, what kind of cultural kinds of
yes,
things?
yeah, we did go out to the Negrito village and,
Mhm.
you know, put the kids on the Carabao carts. And
This was in the Philippines.
in the Philippines, right, yeah. So of course, we had a lot of Filipinos, you know, on base, status of forces people, plus I even hired, apparently they have a lot of young ladies going into teaching, and they could not get jobs for a while there.
Mhm.
And so you had a college graduate with a teaching degree, and you could hire her to come in your classroom for $1 a day.
Oh, my.
And she would help you one-on-one with the kids, run errands, do your copying,
Wow.
you know, grade some easy papers, do your bulletin boards. Did you experience?
That was a deal, yes, I
Yeah.
experienced that as
Yeah,
well. and
so
it
that
definitely was a deal.
really was like heaven,
Yes,
really. It was,
yes,
it was
it
just
was
like,
great.
just wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Philippines was a very good
And they were, and
assignment.
the girls were very appreciative
And they
of
were.
being able to do that.
Yeah, I was invited out to the little gal that I had, to her village for Easter, for some celebrations,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so, trying to think what else.
That's fine. Well, you were doing lots of traveling, obviously, during this time, and I know for a fact that you took the local language most places that you went.
Well,
that
you know,
le-
yeah,
learned
people always
to know
say,
the culture
"Wow, you know,
and-
how many languages do you speak?" I said, "Well, little GI German and sailor Italian and Air Force Spanish and Japanese, you know."
Uh-huh.
It wasn't very, I didn't have a good ear for languages, but enough to get along. I never went hungry, and I always found a
For
place
sure.
to sleep.
Yes,
and,
you learn those foods real fast,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Well,
So,
now, what would you say were some of your most unique experiences, either traveling or in the schools or so on, as a result of being overseas as an American?
well, I think, you know, really seeing the POWs come home from Vietnam has to be one of the highlights,
Mhm.
really.
Tell us
And
about
then, at first we heard, you know, of course, the war was over, they were being released February '73
that. And this is while you were
at Clark, yeah,
at Clark.
at
okay.
Clark, and they said, well, we wanted to go see them, of course, and
Mhm.
people were saying, well, I don't know, you know, maybe we should go down there and look at them, and, you know, they've been in prison for so long, and maybe they're not gonna be up to it, you know, but after the the first guys came and they were just hungry for, you know, Americans and especially American kids.
Right.
And so, really, I can just remember so clearly how I think it was the first day after they arrived, they spent the night in the hospital, they came up to our school at Grissom, you must have been there, Linda,
Right, yes,
in their
exactly.
hospital gowns, and,
Yes,
and
yes.
the kids had brought, you know, little Valentine candies and cards and stuff. For us, the teachers, we said, can you quick change that over and we'll give them to the POWs,
Right.
and quick make some cards and stuff, and they just were in heaven, and we were too, seeing them all there.
So now the POWs stopped at Clark Air Base first before they went.
Yes, because
were released to the
they
States.
had to, you know, they had to get their back pay settled, and they had to make them new uniforms, and they weren't as bad off as we thought they were going to be, even though, of course, they did put them in the hospital to check them, and they'd even open the BX every night, and they'd send them in hospital buses, and open the BX just for them to start spending their hard-earned cash.
Well, like about, do you have any idea, an estimate about how many POWs came through Clark at that time? Or?
I can't remember. It went on, it seems, for days that the planes were coming in, and we'd be, you know, making, you know, posters to take down. And then they listed their names in the Stars and Stripes, who was going to be released and where they were from. And I was teaching in a little language arts deal in fourth grade, in a fourth grade team at Grissom, and so I'd read off the names of where the fellows were coming from in the States, and then the kids would raise their hand if they were from that state.
Oh, okay.
And then they would write them a personal letter, and we would send it up to the hospital. And so I wrote myself to a fellow from Los Angeles, and then when he left, you know, I went up to school and swiped some plumeria to make a little lei, and go up there and say goodbye. I did talk to him on the phone and everything.
So you did meet some POWs
yes,
personally?
Yes. Oh, and some of them snuck out of the hospital, and they were at the BOQ, I remember.
Wow.
One little party.
Yeah, it's time to party.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it was quite a highlight, you know.
Certainly a historic time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
then,
that was in 1973.
That was 73, and then I guess Operation Baby Lift, and then.
Tell us about that. What was Operation
Well,
Baby Lift?
they were taking out all the orphans, I guess, out of Vietnam, and even I don't know. We heard these stories about people who'd go down there and just throw their newborns, you know, to get them out of the country. And so if you wanted the C-141s were, I think it was the C-141s, were bringing them in, and anyway, so they would brief us, like all the people who wanted to volunteer. It was kind of a one night
So you were a volunteer.
deal. I was a volunteer, went to the chapel, they'd say, okay, well, we're not sure what shape the kids will be in, you know, so you're going to, we'll take you to the flight line, you will go up the ramp in the 141, and you'll be handed a baby, and then you will just walk through the plane and go out the other side onto the bus, and then once the bus is filled, we will take you to the gym, and the gym was completely covered with mattresses, which is a little, were you
Yes, I was.
Were you there
involved
too?
also.
Okay,
Yes,
well,
yes.
you can add your 2 cents.
Well, no,
within,
it was
and,
very fun. Yeah.
And so then I guess the ladies, the officers' wives clubs and so forth had prepared clothing in big boxes for, you know, newborns, you know,
Different age.
you know, 3 to 6 months and so forth. But anyway, you were to go to the mattress and stay there with your little kid, and then the doctors would come by and they would give you the okay to go up and give your baby a bath and get some clean clothes on him or her, and then I'm not sure, did they give us the bottles to feed the babies?
Did they give vaccinations? It might have been they gave vaccinations as well.
I don't
I'm
remember
not
that.
positive. I don't know either.
But
I
anyway,
think they gave us bottles.
and then, yeah, feed the baby, and then you spent the night, and then you had to give your baby up and go to school.
Now tell us, where were the babies headed?
I just headed to the States. Do you remember exactly how
I
it was
think
going to
they
work?
were specifically spoken for by particular
Different
couples.
organizations that I had
Couples
worked
within the
with.
States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know some stories were going around, ladies that tried to swipe them and take them home with them.
They were cute.
Yeah, they were cute. So, we do that. There were a few of those baby lifts.
And it took a massive effort on the part of everybody.
Oh,
on the
yes, it was
base
a
to be
big,
able to handle that flow through.
coordinated effort, exactly, yeah. So those were some of the, highlights, of course, from Clark.
Mhm.
And, I had a little 4-star general's little grandson in my class, in my second
Oh.
grade there once.
Wow.
So I remember a little,
Did you have any interaction with the 4-star general?
well, no, because he was in the States.
Oh, I see.
What was his name? James. Anyway, it was the 4-star general's daughter
Mhm.
who was on the base, married to one of the doctors, and it was their little kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did that make you
And,
feel on
No,
edge, or-
I didn't know anything about his background. I knew he was Dr. Barry and Mrs. Barry's little kid,
Mhm.
but
Right.
anyway, not until I got a phone call, or no, the secretary one day came to my room and said, Charlotte, you need to, as soon as you can, come to the office. I thought, oh,
Oh,
brother,
my.
who's died now,
Right, right.
And so when the next break, I went down there and she said, you need to call Colonel Barry.
Mhm.
I said, what is this about? And so then she said, can't remember if she told me what it was about or if she even knew, but I called Colonel Barry and he says, we are going to be out of town, and because my wife's father, the 4-star general,
Mhm.
Chappie James, has had a heart attack.
Oh, my.
And so they just wanted me, as one of their children's teachers, to be aware that some other people will be caring for the kids and so forth,
I see. Mhm.
And so anyway,
That's how you became
yeah, so
aware of
that
that.
was, so that's the only, that's the first time I became aware that this little, what was the little kid's name? Not Jeffrey.
Something
Anyway,
very-
yeah, he was a Barry, but because his grandfather was Chappie James, who did eventually, he had a couple heart attacks and then he did die.
Mhm.
And the second time, the whole family went
Oh.
home for the second heart attack, and
Mhm.
I told my little student I'd be looking for him on the TV, but I didn't see
Oh,
him.
dear.
But,
So now I know
anyway.
you did lots of travel when you were overseas and took full advantage of the places where you were located and that sort of thing. Can you tell us about some of your more interesting travels?
Well, as I said, I did get a chance to go to see Mount Ararat twice when I was in Turkey.
And what was that like?
Well, it was a beautiful mountain. I think it's like around 20,000 feet tall.
Mhm.
And you can only go so far. You have to have government permission to pass the last little village. And
So there was a road
but,
up the
yeah,
mountain?
well, just closer to.
Mhm,
But it was really a thrill getting my picture taken in front of the snow-covered Mount Ararat, where
Mhm.
Noah's Ark supposedly lies.
Uh-huh.
And so I had a chance to do that twice.
Wow.
And I'm trying to think any other.
I know you were a shell collector also. So where did
Oh,
you
yeah,
get your
well,
shells from?
Oh, yeah, well, in the southern Philippines, in Cebu, my first Christmas, 1971, I took a tour of the southern Philippine Islands with Marilyn Miller, what was her name?
I forgot her
Marilyn
last
and Roy
name.
Velasco.
I know Marilyn, but I
Yeah.
can't remember her last name. Okay.
Anyway, they used to run little tours for the teachers, because she was one of the teachers. And so we got down, and we had another, a Major and his wife on the tour, and he kept saying, okay, now when will we have some free time, because I have to go down and pick up some shells from Mr. Zambo. And so he kept saying this, I'm thinking, oh, shells, you know, I'm from California, we can find little shells on the beach. And so anyway, and so finally he got down there, picked his shells up, nice boxes like this, apple boxes, and he said, oh, and he was always talking about the shells, and we said, well, we want to see the shells, and he showed us these beautiful, cleaned, scientifically labeled shells, and I said, I gotta have some of those, you know. How much are they? And they were the equivalent of about $4 for these beautiful big box, and they were all packed well and everything.
Wow.
And he was in charge of some little remote base down there, and he had to send or come himself every week to bring the guys supplies. And so 3 of us ordered the beginner boxes of shells, and so from then on the shell bug bit me, and so I was always looking for shells, and of course then I found all the shell shops right off the perimeter, the Friendship Gate and so forth, and
That's a
so I became a collector. And right before I left, then I called, it's '79, I called Mr. Zambo up and said, Mr. Zambo, and I never even got a chance to meet him. Every time we'd go down there, it was always his daughter who was running the shop. He had one daughter, Mildred.
Well,
Mr. Zambo, well, where's Mr. Zambo? He's out shelling, you know. And so finally I called him up and said, I really want to get a nice shell for my collection before I leave. I'd love to have a golden cowrie. What can you do me for, you know? And he said, well, actually at this point, he did not have a gem quality, but he had a class A. I said, well, I don't want to spend more than $100, and so I think Pat Mathias and I went out together.
wow.
She also had gotten into collecting shells, and we finally got to meet Mr. Zambo, and he was just sharing all these shell necklaces. I says, Mr. Zambo, you can't be giving away all your shells. And he says, oh, it's better to make shells than money. It's better to make friends than money, is what he said.
Okay.
And apparently after World War II, an American had set him up in business, so he was very partial to Americans.
Wow.
And so anyway, so we got anyway, then he had a Glory of the Sea, and the golden cowrie had just one tiny little dull spot on it, so it couldn't be classified as a gem quality. But for $113, I got both of the shells.
Oh, both of them?
I got both of them.
Wow.
Yeah, the Glory of the Sea was a nice specimen, but it had been naturally somehow broken, but the shell had repaired itself.
Wow.
And so those are 2 of my treasures.
Great.
And I got to meet Mr. Zambo, and then I did make a trip, as I said, to the Philippines that last spring break before I retired. And so I was very anxious to see Mr. Zambo and go to Cebu, but finally, somebody, spoke the right dialect on the phone from Manila, and we found out that he had died the December before. So we did get down to Cebu anyway, but it wasn't the same without Mr. Zambo and his shells. So many times we had to. Oh, and I had said to him that last time in '79, I said, oh, Mr. Zambo, I would love to see your collection of your rare shells. I suppose they're in the bank vault, though. And he said, oh, no, here they are in the bottom drawer of the desk, in the cigar box. Oh, here they are, the $600 Gutada, Oh, and we were just so enthralled, and we put them out on his desk. We took pictures, put them on black carbon paper or something so they'd show up, and the mosquitoes are biting us, and we didn't even care.
What a passion.
So anyway,
Nice.
oh gosh.
So you have quite a shell collection.
I do, actually. And I had a nice wall unit made in the Philippines that had 3 drawers with the little partitions and so forth. So I could put my favorite shells in there. I have them at the ready.
Wonderful.
So.
Great. Okay. So Charlotte, tell me what are you up to now, and what do you foresee for yourself? for the
Oh,
next
well,
few
I'm having
years?
a wonderful time. I'm exhausted, having fun, and so I finally have gotten through all my umpteen boxes. You know how it goes,
Uh-huh.
to see all my goodies and
Uh-huh.
which ones I still like and which ones need to go to the Goodwill.
Uh-huh.
And but so it's been fun, you know, fixing up the condo, and my little niece, well, she's not so little now, but anyway, my niece lives there, and she's got 3 little kids, and so
Wow.
I help babysitting and
Sure.
take advantage of traveling, and our church did a mission trip to India this past January, February, so that was,
Wow.
it was fun to revisit India, though the mission was actually in a place down south I'd never been. But then after the mission part, then they toured us to the Taj Mahal and Jaipur and Delhi, so that was fun to revisit the places I had been years ago, 84 I guess.
Mhm.
So anyway, just tried to catch up and see the States, you know, and and get reacquainted with my family and so forth. So,
Wonderful.
anyway.
Well, it's been great talking with you, Charlotte. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Oh, you're
This
very
has been
welcome.
Really interesting. And I had forgotten to say at the beginning that we have behind the camera lens there, Brucey Michener. So he has been
I hope I didn't put him to
recording for
sleep.
us. Oh, yeah, right, right. So this has been great fun. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.